Good afternoon. We are going to start our session on promoting equality at work, including equal remuneration and creating jobs for young people. I have three panelists. One of them will join us through Skype. The other two are with me. Joining me through Skype would be Ms. Aya Matsura. She is a gender specialist of the Decent Work Technical Support Team at the International Labour Organization for South Asia, that's based in Delhi. She will be joining us through video conference. She is the gender specialist of the, as I said, that. She also provides technical advisory service to 7 countries in the sub-region: Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. She has her academic qualification is on relating to the subject that is at hand. This session will mainly focus on the importance of reducing disparities at work and creating job opportunities for young people, ensuring equality at work and creating youth employment. And I will therefore now ask her to give us a small opening remark on the topic of today. I believe she would be now ready on Skype.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
While she is coming up, I will also introduce two other panelists. On my left is Mr. Kirit Sri Rajatha Vijavira. Mr. Vijavira is a senior economic advisor, Maldives and Sri Lanka, and the head of Research and Knowledge Impact Finance United Nations Development Program, and he resides in Bangkok. Mr. Vijavira is a senior economist with extensive experience spanning over 23 years, working both locally in Sri Lanka and internationally, covering both the private sector and the public sector. Mr. Vijavira has considerable experience working at both micro and policy level, as well as micro and business level. Currently, he serves as the head of knowledge, as I mentioned. In his capacity, Mr. Vijavira is responsible for carrying out high-level policy dialogue on SDG investments and building ecosystems for SDG financing at country level. Currently, with the UNDP, Mr. Vijavira also serves as the senior economic advisor for Maldives and Sri Lanka. Mr. Vijavira has worked extensively on these issues, and after our Skype session, Mr. Vijavira would make his comments. On my left is Aisha Sujun. Sujun Muhammad is a lawyer by profession and is currently a member of the Executive Committee of the Bar Council. She is one of the first women to be ever appointed to the bench in the Maldives, having presided as a judge of the Civil Court in 2007 and 2014. Legal Affairs Department at the Ministry of Justice. She was the head of it. Her interest and work in the field subcommittee in prevention of torture for 2 full terms. She was elected as the vice chairman of the jurisprudence and rapporteur of the subcommittee for the 2 terms. Sujun is also an advocate for gender equality and child protection and good governance. Sujun is also now the President's nominee for the Supreme Court as a Supreme Court judge, which we will be deliberating upon in the next few days. We will leave Aya and come back to her when we are able to connect with her. So I will now ask Mr. Vijavira to his initial remarks. Mr. Vijavira.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Chairman of this session. Honourable members of Parliament representing the member nations and of this forum, my dear fellow panelists with me today, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be here and discuss of this very important topic, which of course concerns all our countries represented here, as well as many other Asian Pacific countries in our region, and indeed globally. My interventions, I would like to keep it and more focused on the area of youth and job creation, because this is something that the UNDP and myself have been very much involved with, as the Honourable Speaker just mentioned. And I would leave to my eminent panelists to discuss about the gender and the equal pay issue. I'm pretty sure they are very conversant. If you look at the basic contours of our society and economic situation in our countries, we are faced with 2 chronic problems. One is the high youth unemployment in many of our countries, and the other is the very low level of female labor force participation rates. If you look at the global scenario, and this is according to the Asia Pacific Human Development Report, nearly half of the world youth resides in the Asia Pacific region. It's the region that you and I are living in. And out of this, a third of them are either not in training, or they're not in school, or they're not in employment, which means technically they're unemployed. And this is a serious problem. Now, what it does is that it actually stops us from reaching a higher level of potential growth in all our economies. So, if you look at the very basic contours of economic analysis, you'll find that there is a labor contribution, there's a capital contribution, and there's a total factor productivity contribution. These factors, this high unemployment and low female labor force participation rate, actually inhibits both the labor and the total factor productivity component. That's a technical thing. So what it does is that quite a lot of potential growth remains unexplored in many of our economies. The other concerns is that in many of these countries, there is a lot of expectations, especially among the youth, for the government to step in and provide them with employment opportunities. So in a way, it becomes government to become the market clearer in terms of the labor markets. And this, in many countries, is not feasible, given the kind of fiscal situation most of the governments are faced with. They have very high fiscal deficits, and already many of our countries, the public sector is overcrowded and fairly inefficient, and overcrowding further by absorbing these youth coming into the job market, it's certainly not feasible going into the future. So what we need to create this environment is basically get the private sector to take the onus, and in particular the specific aspects of entrepreneurship to take a leading role in these countries so that you can foster the employment and employment generation from that. And this is something, like I said, we have been closely involved with. The UNDP is working on several countries right at the moment to establish a very strong platform for youth entrepreneurship, providing them with the necessary skills and support, as well as giving them access to the financing many countries to find them their venture. And this is certainly a very strong method in which we can, all of our members here, can look towards promoting in each of our countries. We find that these entrepreneurship cultures necessarily have to rest on 3 particular pillars. One thing is the institutional pillar that you require to promote the entrepreneurship and particularly youth employment. The second thing is the financial ecosystems, whether you have the necessary financing systems available for them to support them during their journey. And thirdly, which of course concerns most of you over here, is that whether we can have the necessary policy framework in order to make that thing happen. So these three structures or pillars, I would say, are extremely important for us to discuss in the broader forum. We have two interventions happening currently, and there's one being discussed with the Thailand government right at the moment. All those things are moving towards the same thing. How do we create more and better jobs for the youth of this country, for the youth of our countries? And how do we foster this to a sustainable system through institutional pillars, through the financial pillars, and through policy pillars? So I will leave my interventions to those brief comments, and I will be happy to take any questions or any concerns from you later on.
Thank you, Mr. Vijayveera. I will now open to the floor for your comments before I ask Mr. June to come in. You can raise your hand. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. I'm Riaz Fatiana, Member Parliament from Pakistan, and convener National Parliamentary Task Force on Sustainable Development Goal in the Parliament of Pakistan. This is first ever 50 members cross-party member forum. Thank you, Mr. Excellency, Mr. President Mohammad Nasheed, Speaker of People's Majlis, and distinguished guests and speakers and parliamentarians. When I reached yesterday, I saw a very fantastic scene of Maldives from air. I can say, I saw many circles, green circles in ocean. I can say that your country is the only country in the world who have ninth wonder. So appreciate very beautiful countries. Secondly, especially I would like to say that goal 8 of SDG is very important to provide good jobs and economic growth, and especially equality for women. This is another important thing. You can find our parliamentary delegation, out of 4, 2 are women. This can reflect our mental opinion that how we give importance to our women in the country. Mr. Speaker, at present, Pakistan's population is 21.7 million. 64% of our population belongs to youth. It's a big size of youth. Below 30 years, the size of population is 29%. So, under Constitution, Article 25A provides state security and guarantee to our youth. The state is responsible to provide free and compulsory education till the age of 16. Secondly, our new government took charge from 11th August 2018 under command of Mr. Imran Khan, our new Prime Minister. So we introduced a youth empowerment program called Kamyab Jawan. Secondly, we also introduced Naya Pakistan Youth Program with the amount of 100 billion rupees to provide soft and interest-free loans to our youth for self-employment. We are also going to install Youth Plus portal, so every child and youth will be online and connected with each other. We are introducing madrasa reforms and registered 30,000 madrasas to improve their situation. We also started national internship program. So government is going to provide jobs as well as lump sum and a heavy amount to unemployed youth. We also introduce technical education and vocational training to our students, because without technical skill, you can't reduce poverty. We also encourage sports activities and recreational facilities, and especially Pakistan provided around one-third population of the in SAF health card. This is a welfare program to provide health card and to reduce poverty. And on second phase, we are going to provide special cards to persons with disabilities. So everybody who is disabled will not dependent on any other person. State will provide them special facilities. We are also establishing youth centers, which will provide them career planning, job opportunities, to give them know-how regarding higher education, to arrange scholarships for soft loans to students, and to improve their capacity, provide them language skill, and to provide them sports activities, recreation facilities. So this will be hub to generate and to cooperate and coordinate youth activities in youth centers. So going to shortcut, I would like to say that we are creating around 10 million jobs for unemployment youth in next 4 years. And we are encouraging self-employment there. And we ensured 10% of jobs for only women. Women can compete on open merit as well, but especially they will have security from the government that they will have 10% of jobs. And our invitations are open in universities, so any female student can get admission in engineering, medical college, and other universities. And at present situation is that female students are more than male students in my country. So this, you can say that Pakistan is encouraging women especially. In the end, I am really grateful for your cooperation and ensure that Pakistan is committed to provide equal facilities to male and women, male and female, and especially we have a comprehensive plan to provide technical support and to encourage and improve our state of affairs and youth. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. I will now offer the floor to the Indian delegation.
Mr. Chairman, Honorable President Muhammad Nasheed, Speaker of People's Majlis, distinguished presiding officers of South Asian parliaments, distinguished panelists, delegates, and ladies and gentlemen. As we are aware, the Agenda 2030 of the SDGs recognizes the essential role of the national parliaments in ensuring accountability at different stages of the policy cycle and their implementation. Various SDGs, particularly goals 5, 8 and 10, envisages gender equality and women empowerment, decent work and economic growth, and thereby reduce inequality. The Constitution of India provides the legal framework for integration and implementation of measures promoting and protecting the human rights. It not only guarantees equality, but it also envisages substantive equality and provides that the state can make special laws and provisions for women, children, and other marginalized sections of our society. Further, the state should provide an adequate means of livelihood to men and women and equal pay for equal work of similar nature. A powerful agent of change, the Parliament of India is continuously working towards translating the SDGs into enforceable national laws, monitoring their implementation and ensuring government's accountability. Our Parliament has been playing a proactive role in fulfilling some of the major SD goals. The Parliament of India oversees budgetary allocation to meet the development goals and effective use of gender and youth budgeting, and oversees the implementation of social sector programs corresponding to the specific goals. The sectoral focus of Parliament committees allows members to invite expertise on a particular subject and request specific information and feedback. As a representative and responsive body or Parliament, by holding hearings and engaging the media, citizen bodies and specialists on the importance of the SDGs and the progress being made, is making sure that people's views are represented in the policies formulation process. Recently, with an objective to simplify, rationalize and amalgamate the existing labor laws, our Parliament has passed Code on Wages Bill 2019 that seeks to regulate wage and bonus payment in all employments where any industry, trade, business or manufacturing is carried out, the code prohibits employers from paying wages less than the minimum wages. It also prohibits gender discrimination in matters related to wages and recruitment of employees for the same work or work of similar nature. The Sustainable Development Goals relate closely to India's our own vision of development being pursued since independence. Employment generation programs coupled with enhancing employability of youth has been our priority concern from beginning. From the beginning, we have therefore taken various steps to generate employment, such as encouraging private sectors to share and meaningfully contribute in the economy, fast-tracking various projects involving substantial investment and increasing public expenditure on schemes like, there are very remarkable schemes I will narrate, our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi's scheme on employment generation program, PMEGP, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme Manrega, Deen Dayal Antyodaya Yojana National Urban Livelihood Mission, Day NULM, Pradhan Mantri Rozgar Protsahan Yojana, and so on. There are a number of schemes which I can go on narrating. Schemes related to cleanliness and sanitation, education and empowerment of girls and women, economic growth, skill development, job creation, infrastructure and industrialization, clean energy, urbanization, technology for development, sustainable lifestyles and climate change are addressing most of the targets identified by the goals under the discussion here today in this session. India has been striving to secure gender justice by substantially increasing coverage of programs for affirmative action, reviewing the laws, removing gender bias, gender budgeting, campaigning for equal rights to women in property, credit facilities, income generation opportunities, providing support service like 26 weeks of paid maternity leave, daycare facilities, creches and working women hostels. The government also mobilizes women's self-help groups and cooperative societies to promote women entrepreneurship and takes a program for awareness generation and gender sensitization. Whether in the provisions of the Constitution, parliamentary initiatives or government policies and programs, the right to equality and livelihood has been the prime target of India. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. The floor is still open. Yes, ma'am.
Senator Kuratulan Murray, Member Senate of Pakistan. I actually wanted to wait to hear from your Supreme Court nominee and then wait for my intervention. So,
Excellency, you will get an opportunity after
Great.
the Supreme Court
Thank
nominee. But if you will keep your intervention to a minimum of 3-4 minutes.
I wanted to club our youth and gender both because I feel that, but again, like I said, that's why I wanted to hear you first. But in Pakistan, we're very mindful of the fact that if the youth and women enter the workforce, it can be a great boost to our GDP. We have taken many measures. We have youth skill development programs. What we have for women, which was quite revolutionary, was the Benazir Income Support Program, which was targeted only for women. We've kind of, we've worked forward on that, and now we are giving short, soft loans to women to start their own businesses. Now, these are just available to the women of the household. And in this way, maybe not enter the workforce, but they can become entrepreneurs. And SDG goals, I feel, are very important, not because they're telling us anything new in terms of development, but because they're giving us a roadmap as to how to fulfill our development commitments. What we've done now at a sub-national or provincial level very recently is we have registered female agriculture workers, which I think is the first time anyone in any agro-based economy has done. Registering female agriculture workers was a particular landmark for us because women now in the agriculture sector will be counted. They will have access to loans. They will have access to government incentives. They will have to get a minimum wage, and in this way, we hope to encourage more women, to get into agriculture. They're already there, but they're not counted. Similarly, the youth, the young people, the problem that we face is not enough employment. Obviously, government can't generate employment. We have to encourage the private sector also. And because of this, we've had a major slump. Our unemployment is unfortunately at a high right now in Pakistan, which I'm sure you do know. Anyone who's researching knows that. We've got many initiatives for that. We remain committed to SDG goals, and the progress is slow, but it's steady, and I think that's how you win the race. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, of course, I can understand that you would want to speak after Sujun. The floor is still open. Thank you. I will now request Madam Sujun to give her opening remarks.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, distinguished MPs of the South Asian region, ladies and gentlemen. My presentation is primarily based on the local context of the legal framework and the situation on the ground in Maldives. So let me first highlight the specifics with regards to our constitution. It has a beautiful chapter 2, which is with regards to fundamental rights and freedoms, and I would like to highlight articles 37 and 17 and 20. They're primarily related to the right to work. Article 37 is related to the right to work, and Article 17 to non-discrimination, and Article 20 to equality. Because the right to work cannot be, there can't be discrimination with regards to right to work, essentially, and it is the duty of the state under Article 18 to ensure that the fundamental rights and freedoms are promoted. And when you look at interpreting the fundamental rights and freedoms under the Constitution itself states that there has to be a non-destructive interpretation, in the sense that the broadest possible interpretation should be given to it, and in conjunction with our international obligations as well. Furthermore, the provisions on non-discrimination also allow for positive discrimination, which is often forgotten, I think, but that's the personal view I hold. And apart from that, the only way the constitutional rights can be limited or otherwise limited, essentially, is by statute. Going into definite or specific legislation, we have an Employment Act, which has, which talks about non-discrimination, and the basis on which, it is one of the bases on which it is formed. We also have a Gender Equality Act, which talks about systemic discrimination, discrimination based on circumstances, direct and indirect discrimination as well. I will not go into the provisions per se, but just to give you an idea what our legal framework holds. Apart from that, with regards to international obligations, we are, thank you, we are a party to the ICSCR and the ICCPR and the CEDAW as well. We are also party to the ILO Convention number 100, which talks about equal remuneration. Bearing that in mind, the legal framework actually gives us a good place to start in. But however, the ground realities with regards positions held by women are as follows. In the current Majlis, Majlis 19, only 4.6% are women out of the 87. The previous Majlis, and this has shrunk progressively. Majlis 18 had 5.9 women. Majlis 17 had 6.5 women. So the number has significantly, gradually dropped since when you look at the numbers of the last 3 Majlises, including this one. The current cabinet has 7 out of 20 cabinet posts. 35% essentially are women. When you look at judges, and this figure is a bit, I think it's about a year old, So out of the 195 judges, that includes magistrates as well, 96% are men and 4% are female. And currently, only women are in the lower courts, essentially magistrates' courts and the family court only. But in comparison, 40.16% of employees working in the judiciary are female. And from those statistics of persons working as court officers, 40.67% are women. In relation to data with regards to lawyers, these are 2017 figures. Out of the 943 licensed lawyers at the time, 37% were women. We have currently about 1,400, but I have not, unfortunately, been able to get the disaggregated data in time. When you look at the state institutions, primarily the Prosecutor General's Office and the Attorney General's Office, predominantly the lawyers are female. That's 46% of lawyers at the Prosecutor General's Office as of 2018, and 66.67% of the attorneys at the Attorney General's Office. That's as of April 2019. So a lot of, but then I have some other figures as well, but I will give you something more interesting, I suppose. When you look at the entire population of the Maldives, only 57.6%. Unfortunately, these figures are from 2016. I do not have statistics for nationwide statistics, more recent nationwide statistics, but it's only 57.6% of the entire population is in the labor force. And when you look at that, 93.9% is employed and 6.1% unemployed. But what it becomes more interesting when you look at other data. Say, for example, it's 40% of females in the employment population, and 70% of men are employed when you look at the ratios. And with regards education levels, despite the lower number of women, women who are in employment, when you look at the education levels, they are far more educated than the men, as per national statistics. However, only 19.5% of jobs are held by, managerial positions are held by women. When you look at the pay gap, as per the same data, women earn 62.7 rupiah to 100 rupiah, as opposed to, so there's a significant pay gap, which is about 40%. And when you also look at the education levels and the pay gaps, say, for example, when you look at people who hold a degree and above, for a woman, it's roughly about 15,000 rupiah, and for a man, it's about 22,500 rupiah. So there are a lot of disparities in that regard, and when you look at people who decline jobs, 10% of those who are not employed have declined jobs. 75% of them are women, and they have declined primarily because they don't want to work. The men decline because of low pay. And when you look at why the women don't want to work, it's primarily because of household work and the need to take care of their families, etc. When you look at the youth unemployment rate, the 15 to 24 years age group, 12% of women are unemployed and 19% of men are unemployed. This gap is smaller when it comes to 18 to 35 year age group with one digits. It's 7 and 9 respectively. With regards to persons outside the labor force who are above the 15-year age group, 72% are women and women are primarily outside the labor force because of either household chores or because they study. Whereas for men, it's either studying or due to ill health, and most of them are more elderly. So, again, there are lots of statistics I could go into, but while the law gives you a pretty positive picture, but the ground realities are somewhat different, and that's something I suppose we all need to understand and address. So just to give you a highlight, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sujun. Now you have an intervention, or rather initial comments from Sujun as well. I will again open the floor for discussion. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Comments, but also maybe a question. Firstly, I'm getting this weird.
It might be your telephone.
Let's try now. Yes, much better. Thank you. We in Pakistan understand that women are coming from a position of disadvantage. So in our parliaments, national and provincial assemblies, we have a 17.5% quota that is reserved for women for proportional representation. We do have some women who are directly elected, not too many. I think in parliament maybe we have 7 or 8, but the total strength then comes up to around about 70 women in parliament out of 372, I think. I'm not in the National Assembly, so I'm not sure I'm in the Senate. All same in the assemblies. In our local government, this percentage is bumped up to 33%. So every third member is a woman. The thought behind this, I would like to believe, is that the women were strengthened enough to be able to then fight general elections and fight popular elections later. I feel maybe this is the positive discrimination that you were speaking about. We do not have enough women in the workforce by a large stretch, but our glass ceiling is not as bad as yours. I want to know, are women, are they satisfied in accepting this glass ceiling? I mean, a man getting 22,000, a woman getting 17 is something of, a bit of a... We do have glass ceilings in terms of women getting to that position. Like, we don't have a Supreme Court judge yet, so congratulations on that. I'm hoping we'll follow suit soon. But in terms of pays and remuneration and all, how do women retaliate? Have you had some sort of protests? Have you, had lawsuits? How has that happened? We have made measures also to keep women secure. We've had laws like women in the harassment against women in the workplace. We have laws about having a woman on every board of every company or MNC. We have positive laws for such, but like you said, the difference between laws and reality still exists, but we're working there. I just want to know how women in Maldives are handling the discrimination. Thank you.
Okay, with regards to the gender pay gap, I should mention that it's an average, but with regards to the same job, it will usually be the same pay. What becomes problematic is when women are employed, but they're not able to climb up the ladder. You might be in say for example, education and health are predominantly occupied by women. However, when you look at the managerial positions, it's primarily men. So similar with education as well. So there are issues with mobility, there are issues with beliefs. I am aware that the parliament has, and also within different political parties, have debated the issue of quota unsuccessfully. The gender equality legislation, it imposes an obligation on the state and private parties and employers alike to achieve parity. It doesn't give a ratio at all. So there is no benchmark to meet, per se. However, more and more women are being selected to fill those vacancies, but unfortunately I don't have statistics for that right now. But the gap is still very glaringly there. As with regards, you inquired about litigation and about demonstrations. No, there have been none of that. In one ways, while we are a very litigious society, in other ways, we are also a very compliant society. So, especially when with regards to women, I think there is also, some hesitation because of belief systems, which make women not very vocal about these situations.
Thank you, Sujun. We are discussing how we may be able to create youth employment and at the same time also equality in empowering women. The floor is open for discussion. Yes, sir. Can you have the mic on so that it's on?
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you, Excellency. Just I will mention some of the schemes undertaken by Government of India under the dynamic leadership of our Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji, which are very remarkable and brought a lot of changes within a very short span of time, in which one is Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao Yojana. Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao scheme BBBP was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi on 22 January 2015 to address the declining child sex ratio and related issues of women empowerment. It aims at changing the mindset so as to value the girl child. It's a tri-ministerial effort of Ministries of Women and Child Development, Health and Family Welfare, and Human Resource Development. The key element of the scheme includes nationwide awareness and advocacy campaign and multi-sectoral interventions. This has brought wonderful results in a very short span of time. There are indications of initial encouraging trends. BBBP is already capturing collective consciousness in the country. The scheme has been well received, and in the last 4 years, several local innovations interventions have been demonstrated by the district and state union territories with support from departments of WCD, Women, Health and Education, besides national media and advocacy campaigns through Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. BBP scheme is now being implemented in all 640 districts of our country as per Census 2011 across the country. The sectoral interventions under the program include the following: Ministry of Women and Child Development, promote registration of pregnancies in first semester, undertake training of stakeholders, community mobilization and sensitization, identify and involve gender champions, reward and recognition of institutions and frontline workers. Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, monitoring of effective implementation of pre-conception and prenatal diagnostic techniques. Act 1994 includes strengthening PNDT cells and setting up monitoring committees, increase institutional and promoting registration of births. Ministry of Human Resource Development, ensure universal enrollment of girls, achieve decreased dropout rates, implement girl-child friendly standards in schools, strict implementation of right to education, construction of functional toilets for girls. Multi-sectoral interventions and media campaigns and advocacy outreach of BBBP are taken up for greater coverage reach in the country. BBP is already capturing collective consensus in the country. To sensitize the masses for changing their mindset is a nationwide 360-degree campaign launched, which include radio spots, jingles in Hindi and regional languages, video spots, SMS campaigns, community engagements through various media activities such as mobile exhibition vans and field publicity mailers, handout brochures and other IEC material in English, Hindi and regional languages, as well as Nukkad Natak are taken up in Hindi and regional languages. It has a remarkable impact on the women, particularly, and youths. I can add some more, but in brief, I would like to tell that these schemes have brought wonderful changes in a very short span of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. The floor is still open. Yes, ma'am. She's in Bangladesh.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and the respectable discussant. Bangladesh has made significant strides in women empowerment. Our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has adopted many policies, and also the Parliament has passed a good legislative framework through a couple of laws which have helped create an enabling situation for women in Bangladesh in different sectors. We have stressed in the economic, social, and political empowerment of women because we believe that economic empowerment is very closely interlinked with the overall welfare of and to protect the rights of the women in every sphere. We have extensive skill development training programs for women at the grassroots level, and it is not only the women in the cities but also in the rural areas. They are also given different opportunities. Girls' education has been given high priority, and many stipend programs are there to encourage enrollment of girls into schools and to prevent the dropout rates. So we have been able to attain gender parity in education. The other sector is, of course, the women entrepreneurship, because you know that in Bangladesh, in the ready-made garment sector, which is the second largest in the world, we have 80% women working there. And to ensure their safety and comfort, the 6-month maternity leave has been made a law for the women working in the government sector, but we are also encouraging the Employers Association and the Bangladesh Garments Association to allow the women maternity leave, and we have established dormitories for them so that they can live close by to their working places. Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina endorsed mother's name in the passport for the first time, which was not there, and also the 6 months maternity leave with pay. To encourage more women in the entrepreneurship sector to become small business women, we have collateral-free loans which help them come forward, because many women cannot come into these sectors because of the financial difficulties that they face. So collateral-free loans are available to them, which they try to avail. And also in the information communication technology sector, we are trying to bring in more women into these training sectors so that they don't fall into the digital gap and they lag behind. So many affirmative actions have been taken, and as you know that in our parliament we have 50 reserve seats for women, and this is a provision in our constitution which was endorsed by our father of the nation in 1972 when the original constitution was adopted. At the moment there are 73 women members in parliament, 23 directly elected and 50 in the reserve seats. The leader of the House, Prime Minister, is a woman, the deputy leader of the House is a woman, and the Speaker is also a woman. So this is a very unique feature of our Parliament. Overall political empowerment of women in the grassroots level, at the sub-district level and at the union level, there are in the local government bodies, women are directly elected, and we have about more than 12,000 women elected representatives at the grassroots level. So in a nutshell, very briefly, I just wanted to highlight some of the distinctive features of women empowerment in Bangladesh. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I think I now have Miss Aya on Skype or WhatsApp or whatever means of communication. Can we have her? I would like to remind her that her initial remarks, to keep the remarks to 4 minutes. or we might more prudently proceed with those who are in the flesh. Hello, ma'am. Yes, you are now speaking to us via. I think I will hold the phone. Can I have the phone? Yes, ma'am. Can you hear us? I don't think it can work like that. Well, thank you. I don't think it can work like that. I will have the floor open.
May I just add a quick terms? I think going around the forum, we heard a number of honorable members mentioning about their ecosystems back at their home countries. And one overarching dimension that they had was these entrepreneur support schemes, mainly kind of supported by various kinds of loans. I would urge the honorable members here to consider the financial ecosystem in your countries in a little bit more holistic sense. As you know, if you were to talk about the startups, the entrepreneurs, you all know they go through very distinct life cycle stages. So they go through the ideation stage, which is basically the point at which they come up with the idea. Then they go through a very difficult phase known as the incubation stage, after which they go into acceleration, then to growth, then to maturity, and then eventually to decline. Now, what we have found out empirically, and this is supported very strongly in many countries, is that the financial ecosystem has to take cognizance of the various risk profiles these entrepreneurs face during the life cycle. Now, during the incubation stage, most of the entrepreneurs face very high business risk. And what naturally happens is when you go and give them a loan, is that you add to that business risk the financial risk. The combination of high business risk and the financial risk multiplies the chances of failure. And this is the reason why in many of these countries, we find that a lot of these promising entrepreneurs, enterprises have come onto the scheme. And because they could not withstand the pressure of the finances, they ended up going into the wall. And a lot of things happen when they hit the wall. It's just not so much that some members mentioned that there is no collateral, but many of these countries do have collateral requirements. So they end up losing the collateral. And more importantly, they lose their reputation and their good name when they get reported to the Credit Information Bureau, or what you call the CRIB. And which makes them to borrow further and down the line much more difficult. So because of this situation, the traditional financial wisdom tell us that the incubation stage or the startup stage of any entrepreneur has to be financed in what you call as the triple F, the friends, the families, and the fools, which is another name for grants, right? So they can only afford to take up grants. The thing that we are working with the Prime Minister's office in Sri Lanka is to establish this grant scheme through the budgetary system, where the annual budget allocates amount of money for incubation of these startup entrepreneurs. And how we want to route this is perhaps through the existing incubators in the country, to give them the funds to successfully turn out 40% success rate in these incubated companies. What happens after that is that once this incubation is through, the most difficult phase is the incubation. They come into acceleration, they go into growth. What the country has is a permanent cohort of new taxpayers in the system, which if you look at the present value of the future taxes paid, it more than covers the initial incubation money that you put into the system. It's a self-sustained system. And if you can work this out systematically in many of these countries, I think you will have an extremely vibrant entrepreneur ecosystem startup network. And that's what I want to kind of mention here at the outset. And similarly, at the acceleration stage and in the growth stage, there are various financing needs, financial structures that you can think of. That all depends on how advanced of a financial ecosystem you want to think about. But certainly, given the legislative power that you all hold, you can seriously think about a systematic implementation of that.
Thank you, Mr. Vijavira. I don't need to clarify. He was suggesting that it's difficult to start up with loans because of high financial risks. Therefore, people are seeking grants. If I may, in the Maldives, the present government has come up with small and medium enterprise loan scheme with an SME bank that doesn't ask for a collateral. The financing is based on the project and not on mortgages or not on collaterals. So in that sense, the government therefore has to underwrite the loan. So in the instances on when it becomes non-performing, the government has to back it up. I think our experience is that very few loans are actually non-performing. When you leave it to real financial risks, our fishery loans, where they build their donis, their boats for fishing, and the loans that we have, our fishermen has taken to build boats, not even 3% of them are non-performing. But small and medium enterprise and startup operations and bright startup ideas sometimes seems to go to the wall far more quickly. That again might be because the risks are not there. Sujun, you want to add into it? And also I like to point out that we have, the government of Maldives has plans to start a registrar of youth seeking jobs, and also at the same time to provide a job seekers allowance. And if you are on the register, and then you are always called up for jobs, and the next job available would be to those who are on the register. And if you are on the register, you are also given an allowance. The government of Maldives is also coming up with the minimum wage, and all these legislations are now in the pipeline. On seat reservations for women, we are amending our Local Council Act, where the local councils will go into election come April, and we intend to amend the act before April. And actually, our party has decided to reserve seats for women in the local councils. So we will be amending. Now, the debate that we had councils, all the councils meeting just last week, that substandard quality would be represented if seats are reserved. That's one side of the argument. If you reserve seats, you do not get the best quality. I mean, I would not be able to, the argument is that we would not be able to come up with good quality people if we do reserve. But then again, we have also seen experiences from other countries when we reserve seats for a period of time and then allow it, and therefore after that, people are far more qualified and capable to contest. So again, this incubation period of reserving seats is the way forward. We seem to come to this understanding now. So we will be going ahead with that, reserving seats in our local council elections. Sujun.
If I may add to that, I think one of the issues with regards the argument in relation to whether women will be substandard or not, I suppose you could say the same about the male colleagues. However, the issues that surround women are far more delicate. Far more delicate in the sense that they have issues with regards to mobility, they have dual responsibilities, their standing in the society, should their character be, if I may say so, assassinated, they tend to lose far more than men would, and how they're seen in society becomes, for women, it's a bigger deal, let's put it that way. So there are a multitude of other social cultural factors that affect women coming up to and contesting these elections, and I think perhaps reserving seats might be one way of taking that stigma out, potentially.
The floor is still open. I also feel that if political parties can field women, give tickets to women candidates, rather than at the same time while you reserve seats, but if political parties are asked to do that, and we can get people elected, so if we give our tickets to women, then it's far more likely that they would be in elected positions. Yes, Excellency.
भारतीय संसद में 76 महिला सांसद हैं बिना रिजर्वेशन के, जिसमें 46 महिला सांसद पहली बार चुनकर आई है। लोकल बॉडीज और पंचायत में, इंग्लिश में वर्जन कर देंगे, लोकल बॉडी और पंचायत में 33% रिजर्वेशन महिलाओं का है। ग्राम पंचायत, पंचायत समिति, जिला परिषद, लोकल काउंसलर, 33% रिजर्वेशन। ऑल द राज्यों का विषय है, लेकिन राज्यों के अंदर में पूरे देश के अंदर 33% रिजर्वेशन है।
Thank you, Excellency. Will be just a few words on what the Excellency just said.
Honorable Speaker, through you has informed that more than 76 women parliamentarians have been elected by the people in open context this time during our general election, and from 76, 46 are new parliamentarians, and apart from that, in our almost all states in the country, we have given in local bodies 33% reservation to almost entire women section in all states. So they represent a sizable number from village to municipal bodies, and in almost all our state assemblies they have fair number. The presence of women are there in a fair number.
Thank you, Excellency. Yes, ma'am.
Just on 2-3 of the points that you'd mentioned. One, I was very happy to hear from the financial expert, because in our provincial government, because Pakistan has great provincial autonomy, most of our subjects are devolved, and that's exactly the way that we are giving out these soft-term loans to entrepreneurs. We have put them in our budget. So I was very happy to hear what you said. Pakistan actually has a minimum 5% that political parties have to give tickets to women. And if we don't, then we can't fight the elections. That party is barred from the elections. Similarly, we also have that a minimum 10% of women need to turn out to vote. Any constituency where they don't, the election is void. Not sure where that is. Is that my phone? So the election is then void, because we have a lot of tribal areas where traditionally women don't come out. So that legislation has helped a lot, because the fear of the election being void, people let their women out. So maybe that's legislation that Maldives can think about.
Thank you very much. Sir, you wanted to intervene. No. Your colleague at the back.
Oh, actually, I want to tell that under new Election Act 2017, this is mandatory for each and every political party to give at least 5% ticket to women on general seat, which told Mr. Murray before. Secondly, we ensured women participation on reserve seats because we want to give them opportunity to come forward, interact with people, have some development in their respective areas, to emerge and create and strengthen new women leadership in different constituencies. So this is a way forward to involve women in general politics. Like me, my wife is also member Provincial Assembly. She became on general seat after contest, and now she is minister. So from my home, I believe on gender equality, so I gave her full rights on agriculture farm. She sent me pocket money every month. So, so this is I'm giving me my own example. So we believe on gender equality as well.
Yes, Bangladesh.
Thank you. I want to congratulate Maldives on your decision to have reserve seats for women at the local government. I think it's a step forward because we introduced this by way of legislation in 1997, but there are 33% representation of women in the local bodies, but they come through election among women. So that is slightly different, but that legislation actually opened up doors for women to be representative at the grassroots level. And as I mentioned, that there are about 12,000 women now holding these different positions, and generally when the election takes place, there is participation of more than 40,000 women. But when initially this legislation was introduced, these issues of, no, they can't, be able to perform and how they will be elected, all these issues were raised. But when the election went on, their husbands, their brothers, and their fathers were also campaigning door to door to promote them and to see that they get elected. So I think the legislative framework is sometimes very important to initiate the process, and then automatically candidates come in, because there are women at the grassroots level who are involved in politics in many different ways. So it is a question of whether they're getting the right opportunity or not. And about the debate of whether to have reserved seats or not, I think it is a very good way forward as a transitory mode, not forever, but why are we talking about reserved seats? We are talking about reserved seats because enough number of women are not coming through direct election. If we could ensure enough women coming through direct election by removing the barriers and the obstacles that hinder and prevent them, then there would not be the question of reserved seats. But to ensure the critical mass, you have to allow the reserve seat or the quota system until you can create that kind of enabling and congenial situation for women to represent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We have come to time. I must let you go. This session, two things. One, we must reserve seats. And I think, yes, we must reserve seats. I will certainly take the matter to my own party and our house and see that when we amend the local council law, which will be in the next 2-3 months, that we bring in this feature. I think we should stop the debate on if we should reserve or not. I think it's getting very, very clear. And every time when even I try to suggest that there is another side of the story, I get accused. So I'm letting it go, and we are going to reserve seats. On loans, it has to be in budget. You can't expose that to financial risks, apparently, for startups. There again, I must let go of a monetarist, right-wing or centrist view, where money should be spent responsibly and it should go through all the financial risks. That again, apparently, is not a way that we can produce results for young people to come up with brilliant ideas. We must let them fail. Well, thank you very much. I am sure we will have more interesting conversations tomorrow. And we will also be going on a trip to one of the inhabited islands tomorrow. So after we finish, we will go on picnic. Thank you.